the Opupco Studios in Oklahoma City, you're watching The Press Row. I'm Jenny Carlson here with Barry Trammell. We're brought to you by Papa John's Pizza. Go online right now and order your pizza at papajohns.com. Time for our inbox segment. Your email questions answered here on video. Let's get to it with one from Joel. He says the Russell Westbrook minute restriction is making a mess of the rotation. Right now, it almost seems like Scott Brooks has no rotation plan other than to play Kevin Durant a bunch of minutes.
I actually would disagree with this. It seems to me that Russell Westbrook's restriction plan has sort of solidified the rotation a little bit more, because I think Scotty was without a regular rotation most of this season. He's a guy that, for all the years we've watched him coached, he has stuck to a pretty rigid rotation. He really hasn't done that a lot this year, switching out the starting lineup with all the injuries. Sometimes Andre Robertson, sometimes Perry Jones, got NCAA on the mind. But anyway, Scotty's, I think he's been more fluid with his rotation this season. And I think with Russell's automatic, come out at the 6-minute mark of the first quarter, come back in at the 6-minute mark of the second quarter, same thing in the second half. I think it's actually added some structure to Scotty's rotations.
I think that the interesting thing in this question that I'm going to hit on is the minutes for Kevin Durant. And I haven't looked at him as closely as I did before, earlier in the season when Westbrook was out for that extended period and was not playing at all. But the minutes were an issue before, and I don't get the feeling like Kevin Durant is cutting back any. I mean, I think that he's still getting a lot of minutes. So I will say this to Joel. I think that is, I think that's how it's going to be when you've got one starter on restriction, 2 starters out. Kevin Durant's playing a lot of minutes. The rotation is not now what it will be, because you're going to have those starters back full strength come the playoffs. But the thing that is concerning to me as a Thunder watcher is those minutes Kevin Durant's accruing, because throughout the season, those build up. It's been a lot of years since we've had a guy that's played over 3,000 minutes in the regular season win an NBA championship, and that's obviously the way the Thunder wants to point to. All right, let's go back to the inbox from Keith. Says, I admit up front that I'm not a fan of instant replay in any sport. Never have been and never will be. And the Dallas Thunder game put me over the edge. Instant replay is killing the game of basketball. By the time they make a decision, the flow of the game has been ruined. Lots of instant replays in that Thunder Mavs game.
Well, and you know what? I think Keith is right. It was ridiculous. I went back and charted it. We had 4 stoppages of play in overtime, 3 in the last 45 seconds of overtime. The once for a clock issue, they got it rectified in about 45 seconds. The other 3 possession-type reviews took a total of 9 minutes and something to figure out. Here's the deal. We can't go back. You can't turn back the clock. Replay review is with us. We're going to use it in basketball and every other sport, but you got to do it quick. The NBA, those guys sit over that monitor forever, 2 and 3 minutes. Can't do that. You got to get in, you got to get out. If we need New York to come in and have somebody in a control room making the decision, fine. But we can't have these long stoppages of play.
Yeah, it was really long the other night. I think I said on Twitter, somebody tell Zach Zarba I was trying to go to bed early tonight, for crying out loud. The officials were killing me. Yeah, they've got to reduce the time. I'm all for instant replay and getting calls right. I disagree in that. I think it does have a place in sports. There was a time when players were slower, smaller, all those things, and maybe calls were easier. I don't know. But now the game is sped up so much. It's so fast. And really, that's across all sports because of how fast and big athletes are nowadays. I think instant replay has a place, but you got to make it fast. The NFL I think they could stand to speed it up too, but they're bringing the league offices into things. I think what you say about the NBA and New York is right. If it's going to take that long, maybe the league office needs to have a say-so as well. All right, what about Jim's question in the inbox? He says, how come no one squeaks about how Big 12 basketball has once again not lived up to all the hype of its programs? Only a couple teams left in the NCAA tournament, Barry.
Well, I don't know what Jim's talking about. I wrote a blog. We put a headline on it, made a big deal of it, and News OK. Big 12 basketball goes splat. So
exclamation mark.
Exclamation mark. So I think people are bringing it to light. But the truth is, Big 12 basketball did not live up to its reputation. It was the #1 conference going into the tournament. Only 2 of 7 teams are left. Kansas really dropped the ball for the Big 12. I mean, when you're a #2 seed, you got to beat a #10 in the second round. So Kansas really let the Big 12 down. Oklahoma and Oklahoma State lost toss-up at worst games in the first round. That was not good. Kansas State put up a good fight against Kentucky, got beat. Iowa State and Baylor are raising the flag right now, carrying the flag. So, yeah, Big 12, very disappointing.
Got to throw Kansas under the bus a little bit, and you did, and I agree. I mean, I think that, if you're the premier program, multi-time, 10-time conference champion in a row, have all that talent, and to not still be alive in the second week of the tournament, big disappointment for the Jayhawks. But I think you got to throw OU under the bus. Maybe not as far as Kansas, but to lose to a North Dakota State team that then went out the next night and just got waxed, Barry. That's a bad loss for Oklahoma. I understand upsets happen, but if you're talking about should have won games, I think Oklahoma has to look at that as a game they should have won. They didn't, and I think you got to say OU and KU, the two teams that were at the top of the Big 12, definitely are bringing the whole conference down. All right, lastly from the inbox, David says, when the story comes back up again, and it will, we should push for KD to be called, oh boy, here we go, nicknames, Barry, Velvet Hoop, like the role he played in the Foot Locker commercial. Don't criticize, hyperize. It fits.
This Kevin Durant nickname story, how long will this last? For this reason. This is a guy that's not in need of a nickname. He's got more nicknames than anybody. He's got more nicknames than Babe Ruth, the Sultan of Swat, the Mighty Bambino. So I don't know what's going on. People love to give Kevin Durant the nicknames. Personally, I love the Slim Reaper. I think that's a great one, but he likes KD. The Durantula is out there. This wasn't even the only email I got this week about a Durant nickname. So, somebody else wants to call him the Shootist, which is fine with me. John Wayne movie, the Shootist. I like it. What do I care? But there's not a lot of room left for Kevin Durant nicknames. It's a pretty crowded field.
I'm going to stick with KD for crying out loud. I mean, are these fun to talk about? Sure. But nobody actually uses them. I mean, that's the thing. When I think about great nicknames, it's like, would I walk up to this guy and say, hey, D Wade, hey, KD, you're not going to say, hey, Tarantula. I mean, to me, that's the sign of a good nickname. It's something you would use in real life, for crying out loud. You wouldn't use some of these in real life. I'm sorry, folks. I'm sticking with KD. Hey, be sure to stay with the best coverage team anywhere, newsok.com, and every day in the Oklahoman.